Excellent. Just show of hands, how many in the room, you guys are all going to lie to me anyway when I ask this question, but how many of you in the room have been to California and experienced any sort of online cannabis ordering? Have you seen it? Have you interacted with it? You have? It's a really fascinating phenomenon in the state and how the state has structured its regulations, and it's really opened up a lot of opportunities for companies like Driven. So today we're going to walk you through a little bit about our story and how we got to be the fastest growing online retailer in cannabis, and hopefully it's engaging, and by the end, next time you go to California, hopefully you experience a little bit of Driven and what we have to offer. Same as before, I can't predict the future. I'm going to tell you a little bit about where we are headed. I'm going to tell you a lot about where we've been, and I'm going to make some predictions. At the end of the day, I'm not always right, but I do have a high degree of confidence in what we are going to present to you today as it relates to financial performance, both this year and closing out the next 2 consecutive calendar years as well. If you were a consumer, you would know Driven under one of these brands. We own several. One of our longest lasting, Brian's going to go into detail into each one of these, but Ganja Runner is one of our online retail companies. Mountain High, again, same thing, online fulfillment retail. Fulfilled by Ganja Runner, which is a program, it's a separate entity, but it allows us to do a direct-to-consumer program for brands. Weed Waves, which is our social media network and discount community for cannabis enthusiasts. And lastly is our distribution business, which is the newest piece to Driven, which Brian will go into some detail of as well. As far as our headquarters, we're based in Los Angeles. We've got a great degree of smart people, far smarter than me. My background is fintech. Before that, transportation logistics, spent a lot of time in enterprise transportation. Had 2 different public companies that we've both exited, which were great success stories, and Driven will be no different than that. John Yates, which is our VP of engineering, he's been serial entrepreneur, really kind of helped us get the platforms off the ground, help us through the integration of any of these different acquisitions. Jaron James, our COO, he was the head of logistics for Facebook. Before that, head of logistics for Amazon. Great acquisition. And then Brian Hayek, who's a technologist and an executive from the Qualcomm days. Talk to you a little bit about the market opportunities as we see them. And so if we're a brand out in the space, one of the things that's really difficult for people to understand is the compliance and the complexities behind supply chain. There's a lot of different licenses in the state of California. There's a lot of different licenses in every state that's recreational legal today. And so we see that having the domain expertise in this area allows us to really help brands quickly go to market and help them accomplish their goals without getting bogged down into some of those regulatory items. We do believe that brands, cannabis brands, manufacturers struggle with gaining mind share of consumers and definitely getting additional shelf space inside dispensaries. There's only so many dispensaries out there. There's only so many shelves inside those dispensaries, and there's not a whole ton of growth, especially within the state of California, within those brick and mortar stores. And so they're looking for ways to reach consumers, and an online solution is right where they're targeting. Distribution's complicated, and as I mentioned, requires many different licenses. One of the benefits to us and where we saw the biggest opportunity for our distribution license was the ability for us to handle A to Z logistics and supply chain for our brand partners, but also for us to control that experience across the board. So we don't have any dependencies as it relates to getting products from A to Z. And then lastly, consumers want simplicity and convenience when ordering products online. No different than Amazon and all the online success stories that we've seen. We strongly believe that we're not only making it easier for those who have been consuming cannabis for a very long time to get access to it, but we're creating new consumers. We're using lifestyle, we're creating awareness, education campaigns, and we're really, trying to avoid the whole trading spit with our competitors on trying to get the same dollar. We're really helping more people understand the value, and therefore we're creating new consumers and opening up additional marketplace. How are you, Brian?
So the first property or brand that we'll talk about is our Fulfilled by Ganja Runner brand. This one is really designed for brands and to help brands go direct to consumer and to get out in the marketplace. As Christian talked about, if you're a new brand or even if you're a brand that has existing SKUs, getting into a dispensary is extremely difficult. In California, at the end of 2016, so right before the legalization, there was around 4,000 dispensaries that you could sell your product into. At the end of last month, there were less than 800 that were actually operational. So a huge contraction in the available area for a shelf space for a brand to get into. And so what we offer is a unique way for brands to be able to go direct to consumer. So with that, a brand is able to essentially put their product into our fulfillment center. Once it's in our fulfillment center, it's listed on some of our other properties that we'll talk about. And then we build them an e-commerce website. So a brand can have a buy it now button put on their website. They can go through, they can convert customers on their website, and then we're able to deliver that for them. So with that, we provide the e-commerce, logistics, and really the marketing and the ability for a brand to go direct to consumer, something that's never been done in California or in cannabis before. Our next brand is Ganj Runner. So this was the initial brand that we had acquired. The reason we acquired it, they'd been around for almost 6 years. They successfully made the transition from black market into a legal cannabis, had a license in Sacramento, and was delivering throughout the state with next day delivery. Very loyal customer base of around 40,000 consumers in there, really focused on high-end premium selection brands. The target age demographic for this brand is anywhere from 35 to 65, and they're really focused on brands that have existing knowledge and are existing in the market. And with that, because it's available to 92% of California's population, it's either same day or scheduled next day. So with California being the size of a small country, we're really able to service the majority of it with our Ganj Runner brand. The next one is layered underneath of it is Mountain High. So we acquired this one shortly after Ganj Runner because we realized that there was a hole that we needed to fill in terms of the newer consumer and especially the younger consumer. So Mountain High is really focused on that consumer 21 to 30, 35 that just wants cannabis now. And so with this acquisition and what we've done to expand the network, we've been able to, we can deliver to 84% of California's population within 90 minutes using Mountain High. So with Mountain High, it's a limited selection. It's available, essentially a roaming ice cream cart that's filled with product. Person calls in, they can see and know exactly what's in the back of that vehicle and then get it to them within 90 minutes. It's a lower cost selection, so the price point on this one, our average customer, is usually right around $92, $93 for that SKU. And it's a limited selection, but it's designed for speed and getting it to the consumer quickly. The next one is Weed Waves. It's an app that we launched last month. As many of you are aware, advertising within the cannabis industry is extremely difficult. Additionally, as a retailer, we cannot sell apps or put apps on the iOS or App Store. So instead, we created Weed Waves, which is designed to allow us to be able to develop a community for cannabis enthusiasts. So with that, we have news feeds talking about cannabis, social feeds that are everything that's cannabis related, and then savings. So a customer can go on there and outside of cannabis, whether it's golf, food, different entertainment events, get savings and discounts. So there's a reason to download the app outside of purchasing cannabis, but then at the end of the day, there is a spot on there where you can browse the selections that both Ganj Runner, Mountain High, and some of our other properties have, and then go ahead and convert as a consumer. I bet that it kicks you outside of the app to be able to do that. So completely compliant, available in iOS and Android app stores, and we're really focused on developing that cannabis community around our products and services. Last one is driven distribution. So this one, we just acquired the license to be able to do this, and it really allows us to be able to control the logistics flow in and out. So we have 3 fulfillment centers within the state of California, one in Oakland, Sacramento, and LA. And with that, being able to deliver to those as well as have brands deliver to those products is extremely difficult. And we're able to sync up those logistics and make sure that we have just-in-time logistics for the products and services that we do have in our fulfillment centers. So with this, we're able to control it. It creates additional brand value. Some of the brands we do partner with are now using us for their distribution service, not only for our different delivery platforms, but also their dispensary partners. And with that, that allows us to move upstream, increases our operating margin anywhere from 8 to 12% on top of the margin markup that we have on our other properties. And the last one is we just announced this a couple weeks ago, acquired Buddy, very similar to Mountain High. Loyal, large customer base, over 65,000 customers, really expanded our delivery network into Southern California. But the biggest one is they came with a really interesting tech stack. And so we've been working the last month to be able to integrate the scheduled delivery with the express delivery with the just-in-time logistics, all in our custom-owned, custom-developed tech stack. It really gives us a leg up on the standard kind of delivery operators that are out there.
Excellent. So I'll walk you through a little bit about the financial outlook, but before I do that, I'll just give you some additional highlights. We did issue a press release just talking about some of our Q3 performance, which was significantly better than that of Q2. Given that we're a small public company, we have to issue our financial filings on time, and so we're going to be issuing a new release. Our Q3 release will be out here in about 10 days, so you'll see an increase across the board in every one of our metrics. Additionally, the organization will do roughly 200,000 deliveries this year. We have 110,000 registered consumers on the platform across all facets and all brands, and roughly 14 brands that sit inside the Fulfilled by Gondrunner platform and program, which is continuously growing. We have more and more brands that we've met with even here this year. What we're going to be showing you here on the financial side is really what the pro forma of the organization is going to look like given the existing footprint. So we're not talking post-investment. The organization will be cash flow positive by the end of the year, which is exciting. We kind of saw that the dry up on capital was going to be happening. So we're going to be entering into a institutional financing here in Q1, probably somewhere around mid-February. The organization's going to be raising somewhere between $12 and $15 million. And we'll be doing that after we issue our filings for the end of the year in February. Just high level, the organization, as Brian said, we were born really with the one premise, and there's a lot of companies in this space who tried this before. We were enabling dispensaries to deliver to consumers. So we were not participating in the gross margin. What you see early on, both in Q1 and Q2, are some dismal financial performances. We were losing quite a bit of money on every one of those partnerships. And early in the spring, we decided to retract from that business, and that's when we decided to get into the retail space ourselves. We knew we had to participate in the gross margin so we could create a sustainable business, and thus, as you see in Q3, starting to pick up both on the revenue side. Some of the bumps you see on the expense side are the acquisition expenses that we've had for acquiring some of these three businesses and acquiring additional talent and staff as well as we've been building up the organization. In Q4, as I said, we're forecasting to be relatively break even. November we'll hit break even. We'll be slightly profitable in December. That's how you see the positive earnings there. The other point I will say there, as expenses are decreasing but revenue is going up, that usually looks really cool, but it also is typically a sign of I don't believe it. We've actually spent a fair amount of time over the last, call it 60 to 75 days integrating these companies, not just on the technology front, but on the operations front. So we'll actually be in a position to redeploy assets that are currently situated in, say, like our scheduled delivery fleets, and we'll be doubling up our on-demand and express business drivers. So they'll actually be fulfilling those orders, which will give us about a 22% increase or decrease in operating expenses. This is 2020, so you'll see here some, again, this is just very predictable growth as an organization. You'll see a little bit of increases here as we start to build out just very mildly some existing deployments we have inside Nevada and Oregon. But there's really no state expansion beyond that. We are going to be with growth capital in the first quarter. Once we're successful, we'll reforecast the business, and we'll be looking at out of state. We're most likely going to be entering Michigan next, and then potentially Colorado, and also looking north of the border. So again, the business continues to grow here. Right now, we are roughly 200 employees, give or take. We have about 130 vehicles on the road at any given time, delivering cannabis throughout the state of California. As Brian mentioned, 84% within 90 minutes and 92% scheduled delivery platform. So we have big reach, lots of growth, and we're excited about the next coming year. So with that, I will give you a little bit of stock performance. Today, this is a little bit old. I think we're about 76 cents today, but we are down from yesterday. We closed out about 82 cents. So, but again, our stock is not necessarily conducive of our financial performance. As the last Q that you have seen that you see out there is Q2, but you will see an increase in our earnings across the board and performance as well when we drop the most recent 10Q in a couple of days. With that, I will answer any questions that you have about Driven. There's got to be some. Yes, sir.
When do you think you'll have to raise cash again?
So right now, given that we've been very focused on integrating operations, we don't need to raise cash to maintain current operations that we showed you there. So we've been very focused on getting our operations in check so that we could maintain on essentially a neutral budget that we're on today. There's marginal growth that you see in there, but ultimately we don't need to raise money. We are going to be entering into this institutional round in February. And that's really for growth. That's expansion into other states, potentially north of the border as well. Yep. Sir?
How are you going to solve the payment problem that Ease and other guys have?
Versus like getting sued like they did? Great question. So we've gone out, we've partnered with cannabis banks. So we're using Salal Bank who underwrite our credit card transactions. We use a processor named Vault, which does a lot of closed loop payments on delivery. So it allows people to use a debit card to buy essentially a digital currency, which then is redeemed towards cannabis. So it's the same digital experience, but at the same time, we're not running cannabis over the Visa or MasterCard rails. So that's how we're getting around it eventually, hopefully with the Safe Banking Act, that we no longer have to do that, which would create further margin for us as it's pretty pricey on the interchange side to do that. Yes, ma'am? Yeah, great question. I mean, it's a risky business for sure. I think last week we had somebody stood up with a handgun. You want to grab that?
Yeah, so one of the things we do is that when a customer orders is that their ID, that's part of the upload, so we verify the ID that we have both visually and we run it against a database automatically just to make sure that either if they've ordered from us before, what's there. Driver has a limited amount of cash, limited amount of product that's on them. We have driver training for the process they go through. At the end of the day, if somebody holds them up, it's just give them the product. So we've dealt with these situations. We've gone through them. It's kind of the part of the risk that's there. And ideally, as credit card transactions come online, is that drivers don't have to carry cash anymore. But for the most part, we've had to have the issues. We've been able to manage them. We have a lot of stuff that's in place beforehand just to ensure this driver safety. Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Any other questions? Perfect. I think we just bought everybody 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your time.